Welcome to the Q&A session. My name is Adrian. Thanks for the presentation. People will continue joining the Q&A session. We'll just post a message in the chat, and we're encouraging everyone to join the session to write their questions in the chat. But all right. We have questions. I had some other questions prepared just to warm things up, but if it seems that you've done a great job on the main stage, and people were very active in the chat there as well. So let's just jump through this first question from Nicholas.
Okay.
So asking the right questions, and he would like a bit of details there from the perspective of cultural lens, what the impact from this trend, economic lens, and repackaging health lens. Why is the timing right for this trend to emerge?
Yeah, so you missed some notes. So it sounds like, okay, so the first lens is cultural, yes. The economic lens is a second. The third is the improvement lens. How could I change this to make it more effective? Oftentimes, like, we see new technology or new trends arise, and we never ask ourselves, what can we do to change it to make it better? But sometimes we subconsciously know it, right? Like we're saying with the first Samsung Galaxy that I gave an example for, the screen wasn't all that big. It was like a 4-inch display. Now it's like the full back panel. And people are saying, make the screen larger, increase the overall hardware durability. Whatever the idea emerging, you usually can on the concept for a few days, and then you're like, oh, this is how this can be better. And then you have the fifth one, which is timing. Why is the timing great for this right now? I think timing is a thing that a lot of people get wrong, and that's the difference between being a very successful company and being just a company that probably just gets by, or a company that might not even make it. With that, I think the actual question, if you want me to elaborate on it, I would say, I think I went through them. I covered. I guess I covered them, so they're good. I don't want to re-give the presentation, but happy to keep going on that if you have more questions.
All right, we have a question from Justin. What is the difference between improvement and packaging?
Great question. So think about it like this: the improvement lens is, how would I change this to make it more effective? And then lens is, how this be remarketed or resold to a different population. So in the improvement sector, you can make a small change. Like Apple looks at their iPhones year over year, and they introduce a new version of iOS, and all they're doing is improving the experience. They're saying, hey, maybe this should go here, maybe this should be modified and changed there. The repackaging is different. It's, when do you take the iPhone out of its current situation that it thrives in, put it in a new environment? Remember when Apple went to China a few years back? That was them repackaging the device. They had to change fundamental ways iCloud worked and how the device worked in order for them to remarket and resell it to a new population. And so sometimes the benefit and value is really only found in repackaging. You might see an idea that fits culturally, has economic value, can be improved, maybe minusculely, but it has a home run on the repackaging. And you see this all the time. Look at Samsung. Most of their devices in the early years were just kind of knockoffs of other people's devices before they started to develop their own flavor profile. I'm using phones, but you can probably look at any other sector. If you go to a grocery store near you, they probably have the name brand. And guess what? You've got the repackaged brand that has all the same fundamentals, probably a little bit cheaper, but it's not the brand that you're going to see on TV.
We have a question from Antoine, and this is, he's asking, do you have more examples like Craigslist turning into, well, not just Airbnb, more of them? Probably the question is, like, we've seen the slide with like Craigslist spin-offs of a lot of companies that came out of the structure of Craigslist. Probably the question is, what is the next list of things that we could look at to like spin out ideas?
Great question. I would say the next list that I would look at right now, like if you're looking for real time, video is getting unbundled. I mean, everything from video as entertainment. You're seeing that with the Quibbies and the TikToks of the world. Video for education. There's still no great platform I think Google Classroom has some functionality. There's probably a few startups that I'm not familiar with, but there's no mainstream platform to do education in the classroom setting that great. Zoom is this catch-all for all things video. So people do all types of things using Zoom, but it's very big. It's like Craigslist. It has a ton of functionality, has a ton of different sectors. Those things need to be unbundled, repackaged, repositioned. I would say something that happened not too long ago was AWS. If you're familiar with the technical side and like how devs kind of put things together, AWS has a lot of cloud offerings. Oftentimes, a lot of cloud companies just repackage things that exist on AWS and sell it for themselves. And probably just kind of tweak some of these lenses that I've just talked about before. But because Amazon is this massive company and they're going after these massive contracts, those 11 and $10 billion contracts with governments and different agencies, they don't care about the $100 million that might be found in one little area, because the time and energy they have to spend to make that 100 million, they probably could put forth and make, billions of dollars. And so that creates opportunity for companies to repackage some of the offerings and just kind of go crazy in that domain. So that's how I would break that down.
Antoine is also commenting that not all trends work. Maybe a note on trends not to hop on. And I guess here it's most like, how do you measure, what is something that could lead to potential high value business or potential high value company?
Okay, man. I feel like how do you value that? I probably need to write an article on that. I mean, just off the top and just thinking through it on a rough draft. I think how would I say this? Momentum. So like Peloton is a big deal right now because it obviously has the momentum and the community associated with that. I think the second thing that I would look at is, monetization. Do the economics of scale actually make sense for this company? If the company can't sell and more easily get to revenue quicker, it's going to have problems later on in life, and you never want that. I think the third variable I would look at if I were looking at, a future trend or, something that is emerging and saying like, is this going to be successful or not, is, the feasibility, right? VR has probably the momentum and the monetization elements, but the feasibility is just like right now for a lot of the use cases. Now the Quest 2 headset could, change my thinking on that. But, right now when people put headsets on, they feel disconnected from the everyday world and life. And you don't want your user base to have this thing where they're saying, well, this isn't going to work for me because X or that or Y. I would love to just follow up on this topic. So I have a platform that I'm working on where I'm talking about future thinking and trends that are emerging. It's called Trends Exchange. You can go to trendsexchange.com and check that out. I'm still working on that platform. So this is like, super, super exclusive. I'm sharing that with you all here today, but I'm jotting a lot of my notes there, and I'll share some of those notes in this field right there.
All right. And maybe you can also share the link in the chat to make sure that everyone gets the link correctly. Oh, yeah. So Nicholas is asking also on the economic lens that you were talking about. Is this specifically referring to the price of the product or the pricing strategy?
Ooh, that's a great question. So both. The price of the product matters on the liquidity and just how transactional the product is, right? So if Apple has the App Store started with 99-cent apps, right? And 99-cent apps, the same thing with music. Like iPod started with 99-cent apps. Now you can go to the App Store and you can buy an app for $100 through an in-app purchase or a subscription, whatever. Netflix it costs more than $100, not monthly, but cumulatively, the prices are much higher. Had I went to you and saw you in 2010 and said, hey, spend $100 on your phone, you would have been like, hell no. And so I look at this and say, yes, price matters on just the velocity of transactions and getting liquidity started on your marketplace. Price also gives you strategic positioning power, right? So if your product is affordable, you probably can get more users. If your product is targeting a higher class user, it probably is you out of the reach of a lot of people, but you'd be able to maybe have more money or cash on hand to do exciting things. Example would be Android, super cheap. Anyone can really afford an Android device. Tesla in the early days was really expensive, and it's just now becoming affordable maybe 10 to 15 years after its beginning. So that's that.
You were talking about a lot of very important high-level concepts of helping listeners get some idea into the future thinking. And some of the examples were also referring to some of the companies, some of them being successful, some of them being not successful. And I was wondering, how do you look at those examples also through the confirmation bias? Because it's often so interesting to say, oh, that company succeeded, and they were, the founder was eating like 2 bananas for breakfast. Therefore, everyone should do that if they want their company successful. How do you when you reach those high level ideas that you are trying to put forward, but you're also looking for examples? How can you make sure that those companies have actually succeeded because of that, not because of other circumstances?
Man, that's a great question. I would say, okay, so Drake has this lyric, and I'm gonna come back to it, but I like this Drake lyric. Drake has this lyric where he says, "I asked my dad how to make it in life, and the greatest advice he said is, Michael Jackson didn't try to rap like Tupac, and Tupac didn't try to sing like Mike." And I love that analogy because just because someone eats 2 bananas for breakfast doesn't mean that that's what you have to do to be successful and make it in the industry, right? And I know I'm using Drake lyrics and it's Texylvania, but I mean, Drake's a popular musician worldwide, right? To come back to it, the way is very similar. If you have to do whatever floats your boat and gets you to some of the most creative energies and waves that you can see and ride within your own sphere and ecosystem of friends and colleagues and workers. And so if that means you have to, go outside barefoot and take a 2-mile walk to get those visions going and just start to think differently, do that. But if that means you have to, take a cold shower in the morning, do that too. If that means you need family time, you need 8 hours of sleep, do whatever works best for you and optimize not from what has worked from other people, but experiment and try to elaborate on things that might get you in a different state.
We have a question from Denisa, and here she's asking for some books or articles regarding future thinking, maybe places that you got inspired from, things that helped you achieve the thought process that you were sharing with us.
Yeah, so great question. I would say one, self plug. Check out any of my resources, Quharrison.com. I've been talking about this concept for maybe 6 years. I've got a book called Inevitable Human, Volume 1. I'll find that on Amazon. I think it's like free or very cheap. But in that book, I talk a bit more about these frameworks, but there's other communities too. Like Shane Parrish has Farnham Street. That's a good one. There's also Visualize Value is a good one. I'll share some of these links in the description, or I guess in the chat box, and you can kind of go from there and build more understanding. But there's not a lot out there, unfortunately. But from the stuff that is out there, the good thing is it's got a lot of substance, so you won't lack in that department.
If you look at the interesting companies today, and you look at their thinking when their CEOs share questions and so on, share answers to questions and so on. Did you spot any company, any founder that, in your opinion, has this type of future thinking and pattern recognition that's really effective and applied into the way they run their business? As in someone you say, hey, follow this guy or follow this company, like they will do these things, they will be great.
Yeah, so I think about it less from people and more so from like habits or actions or things or traits that I think are desirable or really strong. And like the way that most people see this and can agree with this thinking is, one, if I asked you, is learning 2 languages a skill set that is going to help you well, yeah, that's the question. Will learning 2 or more languages help you in your career path in the future?
Yes,
I'm asking
likely.
you, Adrian.
It will probably increase
Likely, yeah.
the probability of doing well. But just like from the standpoint of communicating with interesting people, getting to learn more and so on. So yes.
Exactly. So I try to look for things that people do that are very fascinating. I think Elon Musk, I mean, I'm using him because Tesla's really big in the tech space. He thinks about finance differently, right? And you see that in how he did the TO, how he's a comedian, how he talks about the underpinnings of his company and how all the vectors kind of align and create Tesla, right? It's not just the sum of Elon Musk. It's the sum of all parts. Like if the factories didn't work, if the batteries didn't work, if the investors didn't believe, Tesla wouldn't be the enigma that it is today. I look at those habits and I try to see it from anybody, right? It doesn't have to be in tech. It can be outside. But I try to say like, hey, what is this person doing that makes me feel like I should learn, like that makes me feel like I should kind of learn from this habit or strength. To answer your question, and people that I find really, really fascinating, Morgan Housel is one of those people. Morgan Housel has an interesting way to think about life and money and finances. I'm sharing it. I'm sharing his Twitter profile right now, but like look at his Twitter, follow it. I mean, I like read some of his articles and just kind of be a sponge. Take the best things that you like and that resonate with you, and then just repeat the process. And a few people each year. I mean, it's better to study 4 or 5 people really closely, watch and learn from them, than it is to follow 1,000 people and like learn barely nothing. So that's my takeaway.
So that partly answers the next question from Antoine. What habits have you implemented to nurture disruptive thinking? So besides what you just said, what else? What are the tips and tricks to train the mind to be more elastic?
Becoming okay with, yeah, I think the biggest strength that's helped me is the art of freestyling. So try for as much as you can. Like, how do you do that? You have to be uncomfortable with certain settings. You have to know what you don't know. You have to be vulnerable and share that understanding and that positioning with others so that you can grow. And it's gonna be weird. I mean, there's no other way to put it, right? There's times where you're gonna try to get ahead and just literally be wrong, and you have to be accountable to being wrong, and that's how you grow and learn. And so I would say grow through uncomfortable moments. Winning is not always the best use case for future thinking. Sometimes losing and understanding why people feel the way they do allows you to better understand trends and occurrences that are happening. And the less that you understand, the more that you're disconnected from the world at large. So it's kind of this catch-22. You'll never be able to understand everything, but you will be able to put yourself in positions where you'll be a bit more connected and in tune than others.
All right. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for sharing all this knowledge with us. Besides your trans.exchange website, any other place that people can follow up with you, follow you, interact on social media and so on?
Yeah, so my username is @Quharrison on the majority of platforms out there. You can feel free to follow me, get in contact with me, and we can continue the dialogue. I also have a website, quharrison.com, and that's where I post and share a lot of my projects that I'm working on and things that I'm thinking about for the future. So with that being said, thank you for coming to my presentation at Techsylvania. Thanks for rocking with us for this hour and a half that we've been at it. I appreciate all the comments, all the people that were active in the chat. I loved all that. And last but not least, stay safe, stay healthy. I know 2020 has been one heck of a year, but we're going to finish strong. And it's not just a problem of one nation. It's something that, we can all unify as a world. And that's what I love about Techsylvania 2020 is we're going beyond borders. And so with that, one person to all, let's get through this year on a
Thanks
strong
so much for the wishes. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you at the next Q&A session a bit later. Bye.